Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we are looking at the Figma One Punch Man SAITAMA figure. This guy is a really cool character if you've watched the show, kind of a unique one, so I'm pretty excited to have it. I've heard some bad things about the figure, and I'm here to tell you some of them are true. Some of them aren't, though. Some of the things are not true, and some of the things are really good, in fact. So there's a lot to talk about. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 14.5 centimeters, which makes him just about just shy of 5 3/4 inches. And I have to say, the overall look of the figure is not bad. I don't know why some people are saying it looks really bad. The only thing I can see that's a major problem is that he's probably not quite tall enough. Not that he's too small of a figure, but his proportions are such that he looks almost like a kid rather than an adult. But otherwise, it's pretty much what he looks like, so I don't have too much of a problem with that. That's his Doug Funny face, and it's pretty much the way it's supposed to look, so that's okay. As you can see, the paint job is pretty minimal. In fact, almost everything's molded the color it's supposed to be, but that's a good thing, and Figmas don't often have shading, so that's standard. And the painting that is on there, as you can see here on the zipper and collar area, it's actually pretty clean, so I like that. The little pieces up here, I'm not sure if they're molded. They look like they're painted. I didn't actually look that close at it yet, but they look pretty good too. And the face is nice and clean. On the cape, definitely could use a little bit of shading back there, but it's not a huge deal. So, okay, before we get into the figure anymore, let's talk accessories. We do have both heads, both styles of heads. We have the Doug Funny head, and then we have the more regular, serious-looking head. I will say on the serious head, the pupils might be a tiny bit too close together. I know that's generally how it's drawn, but they're just ever so slightly close to being cross-eyed. Not a big deal, but it's something that may bug you. We have a set of folded arms, which is a really nice accessory, so that suits the character very well. Then we have a bunch of hands. We have the 2 fist hands that come on him in the package. We have 1 gripping hand, 2 relaxed hands, 2 very much gripping hands that are like circled out for an accessory, which he doesn't have. And then we have the 2 wide open hands. We have a cup of tea, or a mug, a glass of, I'm guessing it's tea. I don't remember a specific scene where this happened, but whatever. It's nicely done, so that's cool. And of course we have our Figma display stand. Now if you want to count it, we do have an accessory in the cape. This comes on him in the package. However, it is not built onto him. You can remove it. It's just held on with a peg. So if you want to take it off, you can. It just has the clear peg, just like the Attack on Titan figures. So either the display stand can hold it onto him, or this secondary peg that holds it in place. As far as the cape goes, it's okay. As far as sculpted capes go, it's not terrible. It does have some articulation. You have 2 hinges at the top, so the 2 pieces can either spread apart, which wouldn't make any sense, so that's kind of no good, or you can overlap them a little bit. But the way they sculpted it, it doesn't really overlap that well. That's about it. So you pretty much just get to have it in one position, or one slightly spread out position. You can technically rotate both of them if you want it to be windswept, but it's not going to look great because they're not going to line up at the bottom. So just like most Play Arts figures, and even most Figure Arts or even Figma figures that have the molded capes, it will present some problems. Okay, so let's talk about the figure, because the figure is, I have to say, it's not one of Figma's best showings. In fact, it does remind me ever so slightly of the Figma Bruce Lee, which none of us want that. Okay, so let's see, what kind of articulation do we have for the head? It comes off with the head, because you have to interchange the heads, and they both have their own joints. We have a ball peg that goes into the head, and then we have the ball hinge and straight peg that goes into the neck. It's not an ideal setup, but it definitely will work, and almost every Figma out there has that setup. It's not offset crazy, so that's a good thing. The neck itself is on a ball peg. It does move a little bit, but it's not going to give you the most range. In fact, you can't bring it too far back. If you do, you get a big gap in there. So it's going to have to sit basically right like that. For the shoulders, we have the standard Figma ball peg that lets the arm move around in the socket. And then we have the ball hinge on the outside, which does give us pretty good range. However, they did this weird thing again where they hollow out the entire side of the figure, and that's only good for having him stand there with his arms straight down. As soon as you go to move the arms forward, it does rub against the plastic. It's not putting out at a huge angle, but it is at an angle. So it's not really a good setup. I know he's supposed to be narrow, so there's not much they can do about that, but feel like they could have done something. I'm just thankful they didn't put that weird layer of rubber over the inner skeleton, because that almost never looks good. You do get your bicep swivel out of the shoulder joint, so that's okay. Single jointed elbow works pretty well, pretty much standard for Figma. You have a little tiny ball hinge for the wrist. Again, that's pretty standard. You have a joint in the torso that is basically another standard Figma joint. It's a big ball hinge with a straight peg on top and a ball peg on the bottom. However, once it's put together, it doesn't have really much range at all. You can lean them forward a tiny bit, just a little bit there. If the head was straight, you wouldn't be able to see too much lean. That's about it. And then it doesn't lean back. That's it. So he almost always looks kind of hunched over, especially since the seam here, you would want it where the pecs are. Or at least shaped like a rib cage, but it's not. It's shaped like pecs, but it's way too low. So it looks like he's got like saggy man boobs almost. Even though it's flat, it just looks weird. And does it lean side to side? Kind of, a little bit, but not very well. So down here, you're going to use your... Can I pop it off? I never really do that because it's kind of risky. You have just a ball peg. Standard Figma joint. It's an upside down T. So you have a ball peg for the torso, which basically just gives you rotation. It's very limiting. This whole piece right here, the crotch area, is a floating piece of soft plastic, which hides inside it the ball pegs. So then you have a ball peg for either hip. But I don't know why they did this, but the ball pegs are black, which means it stands out when you pose them. It should be yellow because everything else is yellow, but it's not. So you can bring the legs only about that far forward. So not quite all the way out to the front. How far out to the side do they go? That's definitely enough. So that's a good thing. And then you have your thigh swivel. Your thigh will rotate around the socket, and then the socket will rotate around the ball peg. So that's okay. For our knees, they're definitely not the best knees. I thought they were moving away from this big joint, which stands out so badly, but apparently they're not, because it's still there. You get good range out of it, but it is ugly. Ugly, ugly, ugly. Not a good situation. For the ankle, we have a kind of a situation here. We have the standard Figma hinge, so you can bring the foot forward and back, and then you can rotate it around the peg. If you want to, you can even rotate it a little bit better and give yourself a really nice ankle rocker. So that's fine, but look at these two ankles and tell me what you see. Don't actually tell me because you'll just be commenting weirdly. One ankle has almost no gap, and one ankle has a big gap, and there's nothing I can do about that short of modification. So something got messed up in production. And then lastly, we have a toe hinge, which is acceptable. Not great, not bad, but acceptable. So ultimately, the entire figure is just okay. It's really not that good. It's kind of disappointing. I imagine if you get him into a decent pose, it'll be fine. But I don't know. I mean, there's not that much that looks good about it. It's okay, and that's as good as it gets. So again, it's kind of like the Gohan figure. It's a little bit disappointing. I gotta say, I'm not thrilled with it, and I want it to be. So there you have it, guys. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just kind of there. So thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you turn on notifications so you can see when those videos come out. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And in the meantime, keep collecting.